advance the cause of our global initiatives. With the structural aspects of the reforms now well consolidated, we should build on the momentum to continue effective implementation. Samoa looks forward to continuing an active role in the reform process to ensure that we have a UN that is fit for purpose and highly tuned to meet the challenges of the future. The continued strengthening of the resident coordinator system must include ending the fragmented approach at national level. We caution against a heavy regional approach that does not respond to national needs and priorities. We also further call for more clarity around the definition of roles against the inevitable constraints imposed by post-COVID-19 on resource availability in the immediate future. We continue to call for starting text-based negotiations for the reform of the Security Council. Excellencies, the fact that we continue to meet virtually is testament to the many challenges COVID-19 has placed on us. The pandemic has also directed our attention to the many code red alarms for humanity. Business as usual is not an option. We must take this opportunity for breakthrough, as the UN Secretary General puts it. For Samoa, our borders with the outside world have been closed since the advent of COVID pandemic in early 2020. We have prioritized the safety and health of our people over economic considerations. Like other countries, it was not an easy decision to take, considering the imminent economic challenges that will follow. Key to our response to COVID-19 is the full vaccination of our population. We express our deep appreciation to the COVAX facility, the UN family, regional organizations, and our development partners, especially Australia, Japan, and New Zealand, who were instrumental in Samoa accessing sufficient vaccines to cover the eligible population. Discussions will continue with New Zealand to secure relevant vaccines for our population under 17 years. Our vaccination rollout continues. To ensure full population coverage and achieve herd immunity, government introduced a whole-of-country lockdown this week for 2 days to carry out mass vaccinations. Excellencies, multilateralism and united international cooperation is our best response to the many threats we face. Building resilience at the national level can only take us so far. Samoa is confident that despite all the challenges, even existential threats for the some of us, there is still hope if there is unity amongst our UN family. This can change our world for the better and leave hope for our future generations. So forth.
On behalf of the General Assembly, I wish to thank the Prime Minister and Minister for Foreign Affairs and Trade of the independent state of Samoa for her statement. I now give the floor to the representative of Tuvalu to present the statement of the head of government.
Mr. President, I have the distinct honor and privilege to introduce a pre-recorded a video message from the Prime Minister of Tuvalu, the Honorable Mr. Kausiana Tana.
Mr. President, distinguished members of the General Assembly, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the government of Tuvalu, I congratulate you on your election as President of the 76th United Nations General Assembly. Tuvalu has full confidence in your presidency. Let me also take this opportunity to thank the President of our 75th session, His Excellency Volkan Bozkır, for a successful session under his leadership, despite the challenges to the work of the General Assembly due to the COVID-19 pandemic. I also want to express Tuvalu's solidarity with Secretary General Antonio Guterres for his steadfast leadership in guiding this AUKUS body in unprecedented and difficult times given the COVID-19 pandemic and ongoing conflicts in many parts of the world. Mr. President, I applaud your theme for the 76th session of the General Assembly. We are yet again reminded that since the Millennium Development Goals and the Sustainable Development Goals, we are not on track on the Sustainable Development targets we set for ourselves. Two things are clear from the theme. That is, we cannot build resilient and sustainable economies in isolation of, first, the needs of the planet, and second, the protection of human rights. Tuvalu, with an average land elevation of no more than 2 meters above sea level, is extremely vulnerable to climate change, sea level rise, and natural disasters. How strong will the next tropical cyclone be? How much longer can our islands support our livelihoods? Is there even a future for our islands? With forced displacement due to climate change and sea level rise, what shall we do? And where should we go? What about our traditional culture and heritage? What will happen to us? What happens to our human rights? Will Tuvalu remain a member state of the UN if it is finally submerged? Who can help us? And will they help us? Mr. President, these are the valid but difficult moral and political questions we and millions of people in low-lying countries and coastal areas continue to grapple with. Consequently, these same difficult questions will be asked by those of us who remain ignorant of climate change. Until we have answers to these difficult questions, sustainable development for us will only be wishful thinking and a short-term goal running on borrowed time, not a reality we can accomplish. But hope is not all lost for Tuvalu. We will cope and adapt. Statelessness is not an option for Tuvalu, and I am sure it is also not an option for any of us here today. The international community must now consider solutions to protect the rights of people affected by the impacts of climate change and to avoid chaotic responses to uncontrolled mass climate displacement. In this regard, Tuvalu is spearheading a new initiative that will be advanced by like-minded countries to advance efforts towards protecting the statehood of small atoll island nations facing existential threats from sea level rise, and preserving the sovereignty, rights, and heritage of affected nations and their populations. On the domestic front, we have streamlined building resilience to climate change, natural disasters, and external shocks into our 10-year National Sustainable Development Strategy, namely decade 2021 to 2030. We have continued to enhance adaptation to climate change and sea level rise through the construction of race reclamation and coastal protection systems, and adopting new agricultural systems to respond to climate change and sea level rise. We are grateful for the assistance provided through the Green Climate Fund, GCF, Global Environmental Facility, GEF, World Bank, Asian Development Bank, and other development partners to enhance our resilience to climate change. However, we must scale up this support to meet our growing adaptation needs, particularly our major development programs such as land reclamation and land elevation, to strengthen our resilience to the slow onset of sea level rise, which could potentially erase our God-given land from the face of the earth. Mr. President, the